Welcome, everybody, to Diverse Narratives. I am Michelle, your occasional co-host, here with Abdimalik Maalim, who is our wonderful host, and we are welcoming a very special guest today, Joshua Brister. Joshua Brister is coming to us, born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He went into the Navy and was a Navy aviation specialist. He is the founder and president, right now, interim president of the Maine Black Chamber of Commerce, which happens to be the first in the state of Maine, with people that are welcoming him into all 16 counties in the state of Maine, which is really cool. He's also the owner of the LA Maples, and we're really excited about that semi-pro women's basketball team. Lots of interesting information, community building, team and leadership skills that he carries with him, and we are just super excited to invite you. So thank you for coming to our podcast today, Josh. Nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow.
Of course,
I think that's like the first time I've actually sat back and just listened to kind of a Wikipedia. So thank you all for having me today.
Of course. Well, you're all over the place. I mean, you're in the newspaper, you're on NPR, you're in Maine Biz, you got your LinkedIn, you're, all I have to do is just say Joshua Brister and my screen lights up. So we'd love to hear a little bit about you and what keeps you going and how you landed here.
Yes. All right. Well, I think to the first question, kind of what keeps me going is definitely fatherhood. Fatherhood has prepared me for just kind of the ups and downs, especially right. Like my youngest is 4, and he is a ball of fire. Right? And I tell people it's a great thing that he came along because it's taught me a set of skills that I didn't have previously as a father. Patience.
Yeah.
Constant grace and love and that type of thing. So, I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's a long way from here.
No draw.
That's because I've been gone for a while. It comes. Don't get me wrong.
When you go down there, maybe?
It comes back. Don't get me wrong.
Got you.
No, it comes back, I think, a lot of the times when I'm kind of upset. Right, or really talk in a lively manner with those who are close to me. That like, hey, we love you, but we have to be able to understand you. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Just a modest upbringing. I like to tell people I think of as I've matured as a black man here in America, I now understand and give more credit to my upbringing.
I love that.
I think for me, it's I look back on it and I had the benefits of being brought up in a strong black community, right, with 2 just amazing parents, mom and dad. I love y'all if you ever see this.
Yes.
So that was awesome. I was raised in the 80s. I think if we all think about the time, that was either a great economic boom or kind of classification of a Reagan baby. I was definitely in the middle. My parents hustled their butts off to ensure that the next generation was better off. I think that's a lot of time what you get in the black community. So I was fortunate to be brought up in that. Brought up as a Southern Baptist, oldest of 3, brother and a sister who are just what younger and brother sisters are, and I'll leave it at that. I love them both, but
they also came with a lot of lessons. I'm sure
they came with a lot of lessons as well.
Yeah.
From there, just fast forward, I was a typical kid. Stayed out of trouble. I was tall, skinny. I was over opinionated at times. Independent. My father raised me to, if one thing, always kind of work hard and put your best foot forward professionally. So that's always carried over for me. I was just kind of that typical kid who went to high school. I worked at Wendy's, TCBY. I don't know if how many people remember what TCBY is, but best job I ever had.
Really?
Yeah, the country's best yogurt. I was a kid with a sweet tooth. Kidding me? Oh my goodness! I used to be like, I'll close
yogurt.
Down tonight. So Froyo. Think Froyo.
Yeah, sure.
Think Froyo before Froyo was cool.
Okay.
Interesting.
Graduated from Bel Air High School, class of 2000.
Is that like
Wow.
No, it isn't.
What's
I was just going to say Bel Air.
Oh, no, not like Will Smith. Shout out to my Bengals, though. Shout out to my Bengals.
It's easy to make that connection.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
It's not
A lot of
California,
people
Michelle.
do that. No, this is Bel Air High School on West Thames Boulevard in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Interesting.
I walked into that place as a ninth grader with a near dear friend of mine who's still a friend of mine to this day, Silas Casher, and Jerome Smith and Travis Winters. We walked into that school thinking we were just the coolest kids ever, and we were not. It was a huge school. At the time I was there, just for perspective, my graduating class was 515 kids.
Wow, that's a big school.
Yeah, it was held at LSU. So pretty big school. So again, I say I was like a typical high school kid, but I think I was just a small fish in a huge tank. I had my really close friends. Middle of the road student, could have did better. Always loved being in ROTC, and I now know what that meant. I loved being in ROTC. I played baseball, wrestled, ran cross country.
Wrestled.
Yeah, wrestled. Coach Kettleson. He's not around. Rest in peace, Coach Kettleson. But yeah, a funny story. Just a mentor of mine. I meet him. He was an older Caucasian gentleman who taught at Bel Air High School, which was a majority black high school. And he was also the driver's ed teacher. And funny story, he always used to see me. He's like, hey, you'd be perfect for this weight class. Perfect. And I was a skinny kid. For those who know wrestling, you need the smaller weight classes. And he's like, I promise you, if you come and wrestle, you'll go to states and you'll do all this stuff and people will think you're cool. So I ended up going and falling in love with him. It was some not turmoil from a bad standpoint, but now when I look back on it, it's, and I think maybe you can attest, but as a male, right, I think you sometimes buck the mentorship.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
No, it does make...
Maybe female too. I think it's more of an age thing. But he was somebody who I bumped heads with, but he constantly loved me, which was super awesome. After I graduated, U.S. Navy. Wow.
I mean, wow is right. I think the Navy in and of itself is, my dad was a Navy veteran.
All right.
But I am always interested in how people choose which branch of the military they go into.
There I was, walking in Cartana Mall, which is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, just like a regular kid. And I just remember, and I think it still kind of works this way today in malls. You had all the recruiting stations.
Sure. Yep.
Right? And like all those things.
Halls of high schools now.
Right, there you go. So I walk in and I see this just impeccable black man. Just, people say a recruiting poster. He was a living example of a recruitment poster, and I want to say I knew that because of my staff sergeant in high school in ROTC, who was just a great dude. But that day at the mall, I saw him, his like shoes are shining, his uniforms creased, haircut, ribbons. Just, I'm like, something that being a part of like the black community, it's, especially back then, it wasn't a lot of military service, so to say. So for me doing it, I was like one of the first in my family. So it wasn't like I was able to like look at a wall of a veteran type thing. So to see him, and he just started talking to me, and I'm like, he's like, hey, I've been here. I'm from here. And I'm thinking to myself, again, as a young black dude in Louisiana in the 2000s, I loved school, but wasn't really ready to go to school.
Sure.
I wanted to be a chef. I kind of wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a teacher. So many things. But once I got to hearing his story, and he's like, I've been to Egypt 3 times.
That's so
right?
awesome.
He's like, I got my own car, I got my own place. And he's telling me stories, and I'm able to relate to him because he's from a neighboring high school. And I'm like, you did all this? Wait, what?
And he's probably still 24 years old, right?
26. 26. And
Yeah.
I'm just like,
that's
me.
incredible.
I'm like, this guy. So I was 17 at the time. You got to be 18 to legally signed up. So went home and just tried to politic my parents.
I was going to say, how was your mom?
That was the toughest sell. Love you, Ma. But
Yep.
that was the toughest sell. Fortunately enough, my dad, Bertel, is just a strong dude, and kind of he believed that it was important for his kids to go out and kind of make their own way, right?
Of course,
He's
yeah.
like, I did my job. I've given you all the tools. You can always kind of come back home, but let's go give that a try. And he just stuck with it. I enlisted a little early in depth, and I had to wait until I graduated. Then my mom signed me up, and I took a couple months off to coach some baseball. My brother's baseball team did that, and boom, I was off to boot camp.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I was off to boot camp. So to your question, that's how the Navy came about.
Yeah.
It was just seeing representation. Now I think about it many years later and been like, okay, he did it. Okay, so I can do it too, right? Like, and having that conversation. Once I got to boot camp, it was, we were talking before we got on, but that was when the learning started.
Sure.
Yeah.
And leadership skills, right? And
100%.
Communication.
100%. You show up for folks who have never done any military service. You show up, and for me, I flew from New Orleans to Chicago O'Hare. I land at midnight, and I'm just seeing faces of people I have never seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And they're all just looking, and I'm looking, and eventually you're talking, and where you from? Well, I'm from Minnesota. I'm from Louisiana, Detroit. Well, I guess we're all going to the same spot, right? So we sit there, and I think they came and got us about 1 a.m. on Greyhound buses, and that's meant so you don't know where you're going. And we get to Great Lakes, Illinois, and again, I'm 17, and it's 2:00 a.m, and I just kind of fell asleep on the bus, and I woke up, and I have people yelling, and I hearken back to, for folks that know me, I think one of the things they'll say is like, he's very like disciplined and structured and scheduled. My father kind of put that into us, right? So for me, that wasn't the shock. The shock was, why are these people yelling? and who are all these different faces? I was in boot camp now. I was in close confinement now with white kids from Texas, Asian kids from Cali, Hispanic kids from Texas, black kids from Detroit. Like, we were all in one room sleeping on top of each other.
Sure.
So now you have to really kind of lose your stuff, right? Whatever hiccups and hangups you may have, you got to kind of lose those outwardly so you can benefit. So,
carrying on from that, sorry to cut you off, how did your overall time in the Navy impacted your approach to the community service and the leadership that you have today?
Military-wise, I'm just going to speak for the Navy, but military-wise, it was nothing that I did from the time I got off that bus in Great Lakes until the time I honorably discharged in 2007. Oh, long time ago now.
Yeah, time flies by, yeah.
Time flies by. That's a really good question. I think, again, you start to learn, right? You start to learn. And I'll use it in comparison. If you're let's just say I graduated college and I graduated high school, went to LSU and became an accountant. Accounting by nature, and this is no shot at accountings or anything like that, accountants, but accounting by nature isn't a community-driven thing.
It's black or white.
It's black or white.
It's right or
wrong. It's never really any gray area. Like, the numbers are the numbers, right? They say men and women lie, numbers don't. Right? Like, that's that's a popular saying. So for me in the military, it was, again, I showed up in Great Lakes, and I was, for the first time in my life, I was sleeping in a room that's half a football long with 85 other people. Right? In a structured environment, and like, we're showering together, we're eating together, we're doing training together, we're learning together. One thing, when I think back on those times, it wasn't anything that I forwardly accomplished by myself, right? It was like some of the things I think back on. Everybody does this when you go into the military, but you have to do your gas mask training, right? So imagine trying to do that by yourself.
Sure.
Right? To be able to have support, and they make you hold hands, like they make you do things as a tandem. And so having that, and then when I left and went to tech school and really got out into the fleet, I was an ordnance guy. So when you build bombs and missiles, like, you want to have really dope people, really solid people who have no personal hang-ups, so to say, right? And don't let their personal life infringe on what you're trying to do to move forward. I was blessed to serve in that type of community for the better half of 10 years of my life. So I didn't have that chance to go to college, which I look back on and I think was great. I was thrusted right in the community. Like, you either help everybody else out or you kind of get left by the side. So once I decided to separate and move to Maine, I was like, oh, I got to start some community up here.
So that brings me to my question is, you find your way to Maine, and I think I read that you had a job promotion, which brought you here.
Yep.
It's colder here in Maine, so a little bit of a different, seasonal seasonal differences. But, Maine has always, I grew up in Portland, and there's always been pockets of diversity, not a ton.
Yeah.
It's gotten much more diverse in the last 20 years. Certainly, I can see just going downtown Portland and all that. That's very, very diverse, which is incredible. Lewiston, which before when I mentioned you are the, Maine Black Chamber of Commerce president, and that you're housed in Lewiston. And I wonder, how you feel, why did you pick Lewiston to sort of have your chamber here?
When I first moved up here, Lewiston, I'm not I hate things when people give things like unwarranted nicknames, right? Like, I'm not a fan of that on any level. Maine's a place where those nicknames are given, but I think and I'm still trying to unpack this. I want to give Maine a pass, so to say. I think Maine's very traditional in the sense of their terms, right? And they hold on to those things. So when I first got here, I was confronted with a term called the dirty Lou.
Yep.
And that's the first thing a traditional Mainer had told me, and that's without us sitting down and having community and understanding. I've been to way worse places.
Yeah, of
Right?
course, of course.
Like, it's not that bad. So, so I came up, it must have been 6 years ago now from Portland, because when I first moved here, I was living in Portland on Eastern Prom.
Okay.
When did you first move to Maine?
2017 now.
2017.
Yeah, 2017. Oh, long. That's starting to. I feel like that was 30 years ago. But I make it up here. This is Lewiston 2017, right? And I instantly thought, like, man, there's so much room for not improvement, but just building. Growth, yeah, just growth. So, excuse me. As I start to learn Maine and travel Maine, I start to see, wait, Lewiston's the same as a Waterville. It's the same as any other mill town that lost that economy and it never came back. And here's why I say I still want to give Maine a pass. And unlike in other places, Maine isn't so quick to adapt and overcome in those areas, right? And it's kind of, we'll just kind of cut that off. Nothing we can do. Those folks out there, they Mainers, black, white, purple, or pink, it's nothing we can do. So I come here to Lewiston, I started to meet the people and just hang out in Kennedy Park, just do stuff.
Yeah,
right? Go to the Lewiston, and I'm not, Auburn as well. Go to CMCC, see a basketball game. Go to Bates, see a right? Doing those things, meeting folks in the community.
Yeah.
When we started the basketball team, shout out to Christian, when me and Christian were first getting this plan going.
For the LA Maples.
LA Maples.
Yes. Yeah.
We ended up out in Auburn over at the hockey arena.
Sure.
Just didn't have logistically, it would have been a lot, right, budget. So we come over to the Armory, and I just remember walking in there, and me and Christian just like, wow. Like, we'd been in Lewiston a few times. We knew it. We started basketball, fast forward. I think for us at the Black Chamber, it was just a no-brainer to not oversaturate Portland.
Sure.
With another organization.
Yep.
A lot of our work is done in Augusta at the State House, so it's a quicker transit for us, quicker transit for politicians. We hope to get, that come in and do those things. And for us, we also view it, and it has been just a great chance for people outside of Lewiston to come to Lewiston.
I'm curious, are you planning on, do you have any political aspirations?
Oh, me personally?
Yes.
No.
You do
Personally.
sound like you're someone that has a plan to one day run for something.
No, no. I think for myself and for just kind of the trajectory I'm on right now is I personally feel, I'm trying to do better at this, but I personally feel like my position right now is to bring folks together in that space, so to say. It's nothing more that myself and Nolan Thompson, who's our policy director at the chamber, we pride ourselves on being able to talk across the aisle.
Sure.
Right? Talk to a Democratic from the most blue place and a Republican from down east, right? Like having those conversations. So
that brings me to a question that I've wanted to ask. So you do have support in all 16 counties, and you have, as I said, and I'm just curious, what you're hearing from Black folks that are business owners, say in Aroostook County, because when I think about Maine, up in the county, I don't know what the diversity is like up there.
Right.
So, when you're out there talking to people and getting people involved, what's been your experience with Black business owners up there?
I think the fragmentation is that word I want to kind of put out there and put in fragmentation for a couple of reasons and from a couple of different things. Fragmentation here is in every community. So let me start by saying that it's not a Black folk or Black business thing, right? It's not a white folk or white business thing. If you up in Aroostook County, you think Portland is just 2 days drive, right? Black, white, and purple, pink. But what we have to do when we're out having these conversations is realizing when we go up to the county and we're like, same thing. When I first started doing this, I'm like, no way, there's not that many Black businesses up there. Like,
Yeah.
but you just do the math, right? We did ourselves a disservice and we said, let's go up there and see. So we go up there and see, and there's a vibrant, growing Black community in Bangor right now.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like huge. It's super huge. Angela Okafor is up there. She's one of the kind of matriarchs in the community. When we go up and we talk to everyday Black business owners up there, just Black citizens of Maine, it is how can they get resources that they need, where are the resources at, and how can they communicate it and learn about it in the community. That's been the biggest things. I tell people if you own a tire shop in Bangor, I mean, it's not much that's going to separate you from your competitor.
Right.
Right.
It's the service, probably.
It's the
right?
service. Not much else, right? So that's one of the biggest things that we try to talk about when we go out and talk to Black businesses or just Black community members. We try to let them know who we are, right? When we talk about resources and how to get those resources, really looking to be, there's millions of organizations that communicate it, but from a commerce standpoint, there's not very many. So when we talk to those businesses, we lead with commerce, and that's meeting with, okay, well, resources, okay, well, we're a Chamber of Commerce.
Have you had any conflict whenever when you were starting this? Because there are other commerce, and did anyone ever come to you be like, why are you starting a Black one, and why are you putting it like that Blackness in there?
Not outwardly. I think that'd be a personal foul. I don't. Right? I would hope not. No, to the contrary. This process was a year and a half, 2 year process. Like this was talked about in a basement of a founding member. It was talked about at Major Cuts right up the street. Like this was talked about. So before we even made it official, we went and we talked to the other chambers. We talked with the Portland Chamber and the State Chamber, and now we didn't go out to the Aroostook County Chamber of Commerce, right? Because I think on a grand scale, they're a chamber of commerce, but they're not huge, right? They're small and they got their struggles as well. So for us to even bog them down, but no, we didn't meet any naysayers, and Don't pay attention to naysayers.
Well, that's the message, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
don't.
you have to just keep going.
Don't do that.
Right.
Yeah, they slow you down. And I think I know for us, we have had one mission. We know what that mission is, and we're serving it. So it's been super easy to, whatever negative stuff comes along, we just leave it.
I want to hear a little bit about your basketball team. We'll go back to that a little bit.
Yes.
And I'd love to hear, where did you recruit from? Where are these women, where are they from?
Yeah.
And sort of what does it mean to be semi-pro in Lewiston, Maine, and who are they playing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lewiston Auburn Maples. That basketball team runs because of Sarah Sultan. She's our general manager, who actually just moved up to president of basketball and joined our ownership group, which is amazing for us because we started it as a place for women to come and play professional basketball.
What age level are these women?
Oh, they are, as long as you aren't on a college team, you can come and play for us. So that's roughly 18 to, we've had ladies in their early to mid-30s.
Wow.
Right on.
Yeah, so the basketball team is a whirlwind, let me tell you. We recruit and scout ladies from Maine mostly, some New Hampshire, some Mass. Jim Seavey, who's been kind of doing basketball operations for us for the last few years, does a great job of finding ladies. He's been in Maine women's basketball for the better half of, he's going to get mad when I say this, 50 years. Not 50, but I think 25, 30. So It's not very many people he can't call, text, or something like that. Who do we play? Man, we play teams from New York. We play teams from New Jersey. Boston had a team that kind of faltered, so we play in the Northeast Division. The one thing about semi-professional sports is it's just that, it's semi-professional. It's not as structured on the women's side as it is the men's side. So we do have a lot of cancellations because of other teams not being able to fulfill their bargain, but when we do play, it's an exciting time. So.
Do you ever, the players that play for you guys, is there any time of any chance of them ever getting to professional level?
Yeah, I think that would be incumbent upon them. Our level and platforms give them a little bit, maybe to get to a European contract and that type of thing.
Wow.
WNBA is not very big. It's not as big as the NBA. I think they're looking to expand to another team or two here coming up, but it's not as many roster spots either. I think it's only 11 in the WNBA,
really?
where it's 13 or 15 in the NBA. So it's a really tough sled to get there. Maine will have a WNBA player soon, though.
Really?
Mackenzie Holmes. Yep.
That's right.
She's at University of Indiana.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I would like to, I'm bouncing.
Yeah, no worries.
But I was reading about your brunches, Friday brunches.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bring it to brunch.
So I've been to Eggs and Issues before.
Yep.
JMG, which is a company that I work for, they've been to Eggs and Issues and things like that. And I love the idea of starting at 10 a.m. I like the idea of brunch.
Yeah.
Everybody should. And so I'm curious, is that a regular Friday thing? Is it a once a month thing? Can you tell me?
Yeah.
How do you get involved?
So you hit it right on the head. When you say Eggs and Issues, Bring It to Brunch is the same thing for us. One of the things we did find out when talking to black business owners is a lot of the reasons they don't associate with the typical chamber is because of the time schedule, right? A lot of business owners in general, I shouldn't just put us in that box, but I think a 6 or 7 o'clock start time is tough. Right?
AM.
Yeah, so it's tough. I don't know why that model's that way, but one thing we wanted to do as a chamber was make it so everyone could attend. You can use it for early lunch break, right? Like you got some options instead of in the morning. For us right now, it's once every quarter because we're a smaller team. We hope to get to once a month, like a traditional chamber here in the next 3 to 5 years. How do you get involved? website, like you can LinkedIn. We usually do a pretty good job of email blasting it. Sponsorship, just any way that you would be able to get involved with an Eggs and Issues, the same way that you could get involved with it.
What are some of the things that you're talking about at your Bring It to Brunch? What's one of your most recent topics that you really were excited about?
Our last Bring It to Brunch, we discussed how to build Black commerce via policy.
Okay.
So we have some really thoughtful, forward-moving topics because we hope to transition that into legislation or into some type of movement moving forward. So to have that conversation was great, and then to follow it up by going up to the State House with Maine State Business Day really was great. And that lends well to us trying to get more Black and minority businesses involved with policy and state and local government to understand how to make some inroads when you talk about systemic change. So
what would you see is what do you think is one of the things that needs to change first?
I think there should be an impact investment fund at the I don't know, state or federal level. I don't know how that shakes out. Hopefully I'll get a magic wand soon and shake it out. But I think there should be some type of impact investment fund. I think diversity, equity, and inclusion was a call to the times, so to say. We have to be honest in the conversation when we talk about that answer. And that answer is generational wealth. That answer is sustaining all businesses, but more so doing everything we can as Mainers and as a state to sustain Black and minority businesses. Maine is changing geographically and age-wise and everything else. It's not the traditional landscape anymore. So the quicker that we can embrace that via policy, the quicker we'll be out in front of the curve. I'll give a subject. We went to the Rue Institute last week and sat in on some pitches that they were doing there. And one of the things that stood out to us is how do we get more Black students and Black businesses involved in the AI boom, right? If we aren't talking that from a state educational level, then the Black community is not going to get that, right? Where if you're not talking it on the educational level to the kids in Cape Elizabeth, they're going to get that just because they have the social means to get it. Well, when you fast forward 20 years down the line, we'll be standing in the same position we were when Maine was having real estate conferences and there were no Black faces in the room, right? Well, now we have to make that stretch up. I get a lot of people to ask me, man, this Black Chamber is awesome. When are we going to see a Black real estate company? Well, we missed that mark. Huh? I mean, it's coming, but we missed that mark in 1950.
Yeah.
Why?
Inclusion. Yeah, inclusion. And I'm not going to put it on 1950 Maine. I think for everybody that goes back and look at history, we've gotten it wrong since Reconstruction, I tell people.
Yeah.
So when you don't get it right in that standpoint because of none of us were around back then, but man, could you just imagine having a conversation with one of them idiots back then? Like,
not really.
Right? But long story short, we messed it up during Reconstruction. I say we because we're all on this team together. We're all humans. But we messed it up in Reconstruction, and it's been tough to get even footing since. Because when Reconstruction happened and land was being divvied up, land is the quickest way to become rich. So I say that, and hopefully one of my real estate people will hear this. Until the majority real estate owners here accept that we didn't get it right at Reconstruction and decide to get it right, however that may look in the real estate world, then we're ways off from Black real estate. Barring that, Oprah coming up and cutting us a check and right, and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna start a Maine Black land trust." So,
no, that's very interesting, and it's really good to hear that because nowadays I work at the community college, and it's always hard to get students, especially black students, to try to go into different fields to study and try to become professional in that. And it's good to see someone like you being involved in so many different things, and it's very motivating to see you in those different roles, because one of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast is to highlight people like you, because someone who is from this area, who looks like you and stuff, they see you having done all that, could motivate them and get them to start something that they probably would not have if they haven't seen you or stuff like that. So it's always good to have someone from that same area that looks like them doing things, and I love that.
Yeah, I tell students all the time, no matter their age, when I'm like speaking to them, I think your JMG counterparts down in Portland will tell you, like, I love the military. I'm glad I did it. But looking back, I think I'm still the same person today.
That's interesting. How so?
Because I had the discipline. So the military didn't give me the discipline. I would have worked, like I would have done all of those things. I think I would have still been community driven. I had a bunch of folks around me when I was younger that told me to do a bunch of things. Like my ROTC, my wrestling coach, my friends, like do a bunch of different things. That is what I tell even my kids. Like, don't settle on just going to college. Don't settle just going in the workforce. Do 3 things. Do 3 things, fail at all 3, and try again.
How many kids do you have? Sorry.
3.
3, okay.
Yep. Do 3, 4, 5, 10 things. Do it all again. Fail. Fail.
Well, I think that is one of the things that I notice mostly about young people today is they are afraid to fail. They think if they fail today, that means it's over tomorrow.
Not at all.
Which, of course, right, we all know wisdom tells us that that's not the case at all. But I do think that your message is very loud and correct. You know, I think that we have to, the messages that you're sending out are absolutely spot on.
You fail.
Yeah. And it's interesting because if you're talking about you said you didn't get discipline from the military. What I heard earlier is that you got your discipline, your drive, probably obviously your morals from your family, which is excellent. You know, there's a lot of kids that don't have that. And what I think, to Abdimalik's point of view, is when I'm talking to my college-aged students, you know, the number one thing they want to do is own their own business. Yes. So, you know, bringing it all back together toward this policy change that you're talking about. I remember when I was in the 90s, there was the Small Business Association. Everybody went to the Small Business Association, and that was, you know, the mark for the place to end up if you needed help. And so the model that you're thinking about in terms of putting some money and initiative together to support businesses for black student, black brown people, where do you think it's sort of modeled the same way, or are you talking about new innovative ways to make changes?
Maine's that place. I don't it's going to be new and innovative, but that's just because we're in Maine. I tell people if we were doing the Black Chamber in Georgia, it would just be another
that is so
Black Chamber. Savannah, Atlanta, Macon, like everybody has one. But to your question, yeah, that's something that when we talk about building black commerce, black wealth, and black middle class here, that is incumbent upon us as black individuals to start that process. That's my belief, just my belief. I think through a coalition of the Maine Black Chamber and other black pockets of money in the state, once you pull that money and it is shown that the black community here is going to support itself, like most are doing, right? Most are doing, building that community mentality. There's organizations, state and nationwide, that do impact investing. And this is where it gets a little bit outside the box. We believe that as a chamber, as we continue to pool our resources and build a community in the black middle class, that we will be able to take those funds and get them matched in the public, private, and government sector.
Well, you did an amazing job at getting, once you built the 501, or once you opened up the 501 for the Maine Black Chamber. I mean, you went out and got all kinds of funding and investments.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a remarkable
it's huge.
accomplishment.
Yeah, it's huge. That's and that speaks to kind of what we've done. That's been our model from the beginning. The chamber was, before we got any corporate dollars, we had 8 black business owners who had already committed their dollars for the last year, right? So like our founding members came in 2022, we're in 2024. They stayed by our side during the process. Once we got to 2023, they all made another financial commitment until 2026.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I don't want to like overstep that, and I also want to tie it into what impact investment looks like, because we didn't go to other chambers or organizations to say, hey, we need you to get us going. We got ourselves going.
That would be the assumption, right?
Yeah. Like we have dues, we have great members. Like a lot of people sleep on Maine and the black population here. They should probably stop. But it's been super nice, and for us to go out and get and secure our office on 75 Park with black, with black dollars is super huge, and it shows that it shows the willingness to put the onus on ourselves as a community and build and move forward. And it also alleviates a lot of awkward conversations when you talk about DEI and finances, right? Because when you can walk into a room as a black organization here or anywhere and say, hey, we're fine financially. No, let's have the next conversation.
Right.
That's
right. We don't need your help. We're not looking for your help. We're looking for a drive and initiation.
And that's what has happened, and like we pride ourselves on it. Like we have membership, like we're talking memberships with companies like WEX and Mimic and you know what I mean, CMP. Like we're talking dedicated yearly internships through the Black Chamber for black students throughout the state.
That's so cool.
Right? Like the financial impact of that is greater than any dollar CMP will ever give to our chamber.
No, I find that very interesting. And what you said about a lot of people, especially from my experience here in Maine, whenever they see going from talking about the immigrants, a lot of people think that as soon as immigrants come to this country, they're here to just drain the system or take advantage of it. But that's not completely true. For example, right here where we are in Lisbon Street, right here, you see so many stores and businesses that are run by Somalis and other immigrants from different parts of the world. So it's not completely true when people make the assumption that the black businesses cannot run or cannot get themselves to the next level without other people funding them. If they're given the opportunity and they're given the space, they will be able to thrive and with little support.
I think you can even go back through times in our history when you look at places like Tulsa and Rosewood in Florida, and even my hometown where I grew up in East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana. Like this, I think this is my military talking right here.
Yeah,
I've been to tell my kids, your dad has traveled the world 10 times. And what I can tell you as a man of color from America is everybody wants the same thing, no matter where you go. You can go to Antarctica. You can go to Argentina. You can go to Amsterdam. Everybody wants health, happiness, and prosperity. You can break that down to whatever it may look like for you, but those are the 3 categories that everybody wants. When we can stop, because I hate this too, when we can stop and realize that we all 3 just want the same thing, we'll be fine. Here's what a dilemma comes that I've learned in Maine, because we've had some naysayers and a few mean people, but here's why they're mean. And I extend grace. Mateo taught me this. When you have young kids, you got to learn grace. Constant grace. Maine's a weird place in the terms of you have the traditional Mainer, right? So that person that was born in Lewiston in the 80s, they have known nothing but Lewiston to be full of no opportunity for them. None at all. They've stayed, they stuck it out, but they haven't, and this is what we tell everybody, turn me up on this one, talk to your politicians. I'll say it again, talk to your politicians. Your politicians failed you. The city didn't fail you. Your local, your state, and your federal politicians failed you. Now, that didn't happen, so we fast forward, and then the asylum seeker comes to the state of Maine. And that's coupled with traditional Mainers who have seen nothing but downtrodden times. And you see another group of people. It could have been Asian asylum seekers that came here, and people from matter. It would have been the same thing.
That's right.
Because we as people, nobody wants to see everybody. Wait a minute, what about me? Yeah. I'm from here. I've lived. I've stayed here. My parents worked in the mill that shut down. It wasn't their fault, but we stayed. What about us? So I tell people it's a conundrum for me being from Louisiana, because I understand that. I understand back home where it's being gentrified, and there's black folks who've worked at Exxon, may have cancer now, but never really was able to get out of that area. And you're seeing high rises coming, the rent going up to $5,000 a month. Exactly. You don't hate white people. But they're the ones that are getting that, right? Yes. And then you can't walk into your mayor's office, which you can if you're in Lewiston, go see Carl. Go to City Hall, drive to Augusta, and let them know this is what's affecting you, not yelling at people who, if you had a chance to stay in your own home, would you stay or would you want to move? You're behind 10,000 miles to a new place.
That's right. I mean, that's the
Everybody
truth of it.
would choose A. Nobody. That's why I tell people, if they took me and you as Americans and sent us to France because we couldn't live here anymore, it was war torn. What, we just gonna be happy go lucky? No.
You come here because it's you have a reason.
You got a reason to be here.
Right.
They want to show up.
And the stories of those those people coming is just unthinkable.
Right. So that's the Joshua that I think, to your point earlier, like I do genuinely believe we all should be living the same and in cohesion with each other. I think a lot of the times, though, and especially for us, we try to keep in the front part of our mind. Oftentimes it's not a race thing. It's often not. When you talk about the ills and the issues that affect us all. Right?
It's a human thing.
A human thing.
Right.
I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I grew up around ghettos. Where I lived in Saco, there was a ghetto, and it was full of traditional white Mainers, right? So it didn't matter their color that got them in that ghetto. It was that socioeconomic situation, right? So I think once a lot of our traditional Mainers accept that, and we'll be in a better place, because nobody wants a free handout. Nobody does. That's not how we operate as people. We're all independent beings. That's who humans are. Nobody wants a handout. So.
God, I really think you should run for something, because it would be really lovely to have.
They'd be like, you're too.
I just think, yeah, right. But the problem. But what you're speaking is human.
Yeah,
you're speaking
100%.
Human,
100%.
not color, not
100%.
all those things. And I just wish that I wish that there were people that would literally step in the middle of the aisle and say to each other, you're human, I'm human. We want to work this out as humans living in the same state.
Yeah.
This is such an amazing state, and
1000%.
There's so much prosperity to
and resources.
to have, and
enough
resources
for everybody.
And what more beautiful? The only way that Maine could get more beautiful is to have diversification, equity, inclusion, all of those things that are these buzzwords today, but it's the truth. And I think that what your work is doing is informing our future group of students. And I love that you
so
are here with us today to talk and share your message. I would ask one last thing before we wrap up. I mean, it sounds like you're pretty wise, and you were wise when you were 18, so this is kind of tough. But
no, I was not
what
wise.
Would you?
Wait a minute.
Did you fib? No, I would like. I would like to. I would like to
You got some
hear.
feedback on that one. They were like, "Well, we knew him when he was 30."
Well, we won't. Yeah, we won't. No calls today, people. I would like to hear. What would Josh say to his younger self? And I guess Mateo is your younger self, right? And I love that you say give yourself grace, and that's awesome. And maybe that's your message. But what would be the message you'd give to yourself after all this time and what you're working towards?
Slow down. Slow down. Hey, two things I tell myself. I'd say slow down, first of all. I joke, but my 25-year high school graduation is next year.
Wow.
And I don't feel it, but I say that to all kids that I meet in every aspect because I think kids do respond to me and they listen. And I tell them, look, everything I told you today, slow your butt down. Enjoy every day of being 18. Enjoy every day of being 19. Enjoy every day of being 20, 21. Enjoy it because guess what, man? As soon as you turn, it don't even matter your age.
It's fleeting.
It's fleeting. And you can turn 18 and be thrusted with adult problems.
Wow.
And that youth and jovialness just goes away from great people. I've seen it. I've seen financial woes like break the best people, right? And have them looking back like, man, I wish I would have just took my time. So that's my number one message. I tell my kids, slow your butts down. This world, this life, and like everything around you is moving at a bazillion seconds a minute. We're still on Neanderthal brains. It's too much for us. Slow down. So that's my number one message to like everybody. And I think that comes too as I get older as a black dude in America. Like I count them. I'm like, let me slow down. So number two, find out who you are, accept it and embrace it.
Wow.
That's wicked good,
Here's why.
as Amina would say.
At 18, I was the same person I am right now. Same as you all. Same as you all. Live life experiences are 99% of you becoming who you are. I'm such a strong believer that as a person, I even think back to being a kid in Louisiana. I was 16 coaching my brother's baseball team, right? Like I grew up in youth legislation. Like I was always a community person. One thing I regret, though, and I tell young folks, in that advice, when you find out who you are, accept it and embrace it, and stay with it. Even when it gets wavy and rocky, stay with it. Stay with who you are. Here's why. The world moves so fast, and everybody else is worrying about who they are, that nobody has the time to break it down on a molecular level of who you are. The only person in this world that's going to know that is you. My daughter Sophie teaches me, let me tell you something. She's 13 and she knows who she is.
Interesting.
Let me she's known who she's been. I joke with her, but she's known who she's been since I held her. She is smart, strong, beautiful. Like that's who she is. She's going to be a designer. And she comes to me and she says, I was just joking. What do you want to be? She said, well, Dad, I want to be a curator at the Smithsonian. I'm like, what the?
Could you break that down for me?
Yeah. But embrace yourself and find out who you are and be comfortable in it. Because when it's all done, that's all it is you being comfortable in yourself. Nobody's going to tell you failure, all of that stuff goes away. Not failure, you're still going to fail. But that inert feeling you feel inside yourself, it won't be there because you know yourself. You know that's a hiccup. That's not failure. I just need to try harder. And you go on. So, yeah, slow down and know yourself.
I love that so much, Josh, and I love our conversation. I think we could probably go on for hours,
Probably
right?
could.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you'll come back for a second podcast, part 2.
Listen, you're going to have some more chamber members in here.
I
butts in here.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think Yeah, this is exactly why both of us wanted to have this podcast, and we appreciate your time today, of course. And to our listeners and or watchers, you can see us on YouTube, on Apple, on. I'm going to let the techie over here tell us where else.
I love this. Michelle did really well running this episode.
Thank you.
And it was awesome just sitting along and just hearing your story. It's very inspiring. And like she said, this is why we started this, to showcase people like you.
Thank you.
And hopefully this will inspire youngsters to go for whatever it is that they want to pursue. And it was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much.
And I appreciate Michelle for taking on this and running this episode. If you guys want to check us out, you can listen to us on Spotify and all the Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the other places. Diverse-narratives at diverse-narratives. Joshua, if someone wanted to get in contact with you because they listened to this and they're so inspired and they want to hear more about the things that you mentioned, because due to time, we couldn't go into detail in everything.
We could be here until tomorrow.
Yes, yes. How can they get in touch with you?
Simple. You can Google me for LA Maples basketball. You can Google LA Maples. Sarah will definitely get back to you. Blackchamber.com, mbcc.com. If you're in Lewiston, you can find us at 75 Park Street.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want to be in touch with Joshua, definitely reach him out on those platforms. And we appreciate you guys for watching or listening to this episode. We'll see you all in the next episode.